The Ministerial Conference so agrees.
Two decades after China joined the WTO and was welcomed into the international community, nations recognized that the Chinese economy was in serious trouble and are alarmed by Beijing's aggressive behavior and geopolitical ambitions.
China's yuan is at a 16-year low.
Joe Biden says China's a ticking time bomb.
This week, the world's second-largest economy is stumbling.
Beijing is grappling with a mounting debt crisis.
So what is going wrong for the world's second-largest economy?
They fear that China's faltering economy and political instability may drive the already troubled world further into chaos, and that a third world war is inevitable. This awakening, however, was brought about by COVID. Up until this point, people looked away from the many problems instigated by the Chinese Communist regime. But the pandemic forced them to reevaluate the cost of the CCP's rise to prominence. Why did it take us more than 20 years to recognize CCP's threats? What lessons can we learn from our past misjudgments? Hello, welcome to Lei's Real Talk. I'm Lei. The United States is a democratic society in which different opinions and views are welcome. Americans are very open-minded about people and ideas, and welcomed the Chinese communists to America during China's decades of economic reforms and opening up. Emboldened by decades of experience in working with the West, the CCP has become ever more egregious and dangerous. It's being on the offense while the United States and its allies are now busy playing defense. Despite the past lessons, the present predicament, and the looming future crisis, American political and business elites still believe that they can negotiate with the CCP and can coexist. This is undoubtedly wishful thinking because the West has underestimated its opponent. The CCP is larger than life. The CCP is not just a political party or a regime. It's a quasi-religious practice based on communism. The CCP is organized and run like a religious organization. Whether it was Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, or now Xi Jinping, the leaders are worshipped like deities. The leaders are promoted like saviors who can save the people from misery. Their writings are studied and followed like the Holy Bible. Party members are required to attend weekly group sessions to study the Holy Scriptures together. If they don't follow these rules, they will be subject to bonus reductions, pay cuts, or expulsion. When joining the CCP, people raise their right fist and swear that they will give their life to the party. But the forced indoctrination proves that the CCP religion isn't a righteous one. So Western government officials need to understand that dealing with the CCP entails more than just politics, and that it's an ideological battle as well as a spiritual one. They need to have principles, strength, and wisdom in order to contain the CCP. The CCP loves chaos because it gains power from human suffering. The world at war provides the CCP with the best opportunity to take down its opponents. Historically, the CCP grew stronger during World War II, after the Japanese invaded China, while the Kuomintang or the nationalists were tied up fighting the invaders. Mao thanked the Japanese for helping him seize power. After establishing the People's Republic of China, the CCP provoked the Korean War with the purpose of obtaining Soviet military technology. After the Korean War, the world enjoyed 3 decades of peace and economic development. So without any external conflicts, the CCP created internal ones. During the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, the CCP's internal political campaigns turned Chinese people against each other and drove the economy to the brink of collapse. But Mao obtained absolute power during the process. The CCP's decision to enact economic reforms was never about going through fundamental changes to become a member of civil society. It was about putting on a piece of nice clothing to cover up the flaws. In order to take over control, Deng Xiaoping had to choose a completely different path. He had to gain the allegiance of all factions within the party. This is how China's reform and opening up came about in the early 1980s. Deng, like Mao, never gave up on the communist ideology, but he was more practical. Deng didn't choose reforms to change China, but was forced to take a path different from that of Mao in order to help the regime survive. The essence of Deng's reforms wasn't about reform. It was about changing into a nice piece of clothing so that the CCP could attract investments. His reforms made the CCP look attractive and get money, but it didn't gentrify the regime a bit. 40 years into Deng's economic reforms, China's human rights condition has worsened, and the CCP has turned the country into a giant digital prison that has victimized every citizen, as we've seen during the COVID lockdowns. From the very beginning, Deng's reforms were doomed to fail because without a political reform, economic reforms would be led into a dead end. They didn't give China a healthy market-driven economy, but instead created a self-serving economic monster that Joe Biden called a ticking time bomb. Today, China's stock market isn't where entrepreneurs raise funds to grow their businesses. Instead, it has become a place for the movers and shakers within the CCP to harvest the wealth of ordinary people. China's real estate market has become a synonym for a state financial scam. In the past 40 years, academic corruption has prevented China's schools from producing talent to support basic R&D. Chinese industries have to rely on forced technology transfers, espionage, and theft to remain competitive. The decades of economic reforms didn't create a generation of well-educated, skilled workers, but instead left behind hundreds of millions of aging migrant workers. Unlike Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, which have brands that epitomize national industrial prowess, China doesn't have a class of competitive and reputable enterprises that can be compared to Sony, Samsung, and TSMC. Chinese companies' global footprint is obtained through unfair trade practices, such as heavy government subsidies and market dumping. Despite the lack of a market economy, the CCP has commercialized everything that shouldn't be commercial: education, healthcare, and nonprofit organizations. The country has become a market where everything has a price and everything is for sale. In the past 40 years, the West hasn't changed the CCP, but the CCP has certainly changed the world. Foreign companies still cannot go to China to do business without Beijing's approval, but CCP-controlled entities have bought up land and infrastructure everywhere in the world. The internet is still blocked and information is highly censored in China. Yet the CCP's practice of generating fake data and fake news has spread worldwide. The US government's lack of understanding of the CCP inadvertently helped the regime survive many existential crises. After World War II, the US government was convinced that supporting the CCP was necessary to expedite China's democratic process by creating an opposition party to the nationalists, China's ruling party at the time. During the Cold War, Richard Nixon believed that a Sino-US alliance could counter the Soviets. More than a decade later, George Bush personally lifted the sanctions he put on Beijing for opening fire on civilians in Tiananmen Square. Bill Clinton wishfully believed that the West could influence the CCP to democratize by allowing it to join the WTO. Each time the Americans misjudged the CCP's nature and intent, it got stronger. Now, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen naively called on Beijing to sanction the Chinese state-owned enterprises that have helped Russia. and Hillary Clinton suggested that Xi Jinping should be replaced and that the emergence of a second Deng Xiaoping in China would be beneficial to the West. A second Deng Xiaoping in China would mean that the CCP will be given another chance or another 40 years to develop and eventually overtake the United States. Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping are inseparable parts of the CCP. Without Mao's ultra-leftist policies, there will be none of Deng Xiaoping's reforms and opening up. Mao and Deng are two sides of the same coin, the yin and the yang of the party. Today's CCP is the inevitable result of the struggles between the two. Those who believe that Deng's reforms are better than Mao's policies and that replacing Xi Jinping with a Deng-like leader is beneficial to the West are very shallow in their understanding. The CCP isn't interested in coexisting with the United States. Instead, it wants to take America down by slowly turning it into a communist country. From the very beginning, the CCP's goal has been to institute communism in the world and liberate all of humanity. Taking Taiwan isn't about territorial unification. It's the CCP's spiritual crusade against the United States. By the time Xi Jinping took over, people in China had stopped believing the communist ideology. So Xi had only one choice, that is, to fundamentally transform China into a democratic society, but he didn't. He belongs to the generation that grew up during the Cultural Revolution and were indoctrinated by Maoist ideas during their most formative years. He chose to turn further left, and this has accelerated the downfall of the regime, since the foundation of the communist belief system has crumbled. Those who still blindly believe that they can coexist with the sinking CCP ship will go down with it. I hope people are wise enough to jump ship and cut all ties. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.